Hey, greetings family, greetings. June Allen here, your racial sobriety mentor from juneallen.net, and I teach black women how to heal from addiction to self-hate with racial sobriety and personal empowerment. It's been a few days since I've been on. It's so good to be back. So today's topic, I'm going to be talking about it's quite a sensitive topic, obviously if you've seen the title. So it's about, it takes a village to raise a child, the African proverb, but how do we raise a child when the village is wounded? How do we do that? But before we get into it, I'm going to just go through some housekeeping. So the first thing I'll say about the housekeeping is that there's a new date for the Sister Circle book club on the 16th of February next month. It's starting at 9:30 and it's 5 minutes from Bond Street. It's live, it's not online. So if you can make it, we'd love to have it. It's not just an ordinary book club. Not only do we study the text, which is, where is it? Have I got it to hand? I think I was doing some work with it earlier and it's in the other room, so I don't have it with me to hand. But it's is it on there? No. It's bell hooks. I know where it is. Here it is. I took it with me on the tube this morning. It's this one. It's Bell Hooks, Sisters of the Am, Black Women in Self-Recovery. Amazing book. And what we're doing is we're taking one chapter each month and we're breaking it down. I'm breaking it down and we're having a conversation about it. And then we talk, we share, and then you get heart work, which is homework. So you get that to take home afterwards. I email it to you afterwards, and also what comes with that is some audios to answer any questions that come up in the live, and also the heart work questions that I set, which are kind of like journal prompts from the text as well. There's an audio that goes through the questions as well, so things to consider to write out in your journal and stuff like that. How to actually use the heart work so you get the best out of it, and how to do it in a way that's really gentle and kind. What else is in there? Also, you also get a starter kit as well. I'm putting the starter kit in there now as well. So there's an ebook in there with all of the stuff that we talk about in the lives, because as well as in studying the book, we also do the characteristics of black self-hate, we do the tools for empowerment, and we do the promises of sacred self-love. So you know exactly where you are, what behaviors identify with you if you think that you don't love yourself, or things that you might not realize are not really very loving, but it's just a really good way for you to identify where you are, what the behaviors are, and what you need to do, and what it looks like when you actually are loving yourself. So if you can make it on the 16th of February, click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, and it will take you to all the links to the Sister Circle, and everything else I'm going to be talking about in this live are at that link. So you click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net. So yeah, for those of you that are just joining, or those of you that don't know me, I've been in recovery from addiction to dysfunctional relationships for the last 8-9 years, and it's been a massive journey. It's been an amazing journey. And when I talk about addiction in this context, a lot of people automatically think about drink, drugs, substances, but in this case I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about finding yourself. I found myself constantly in relationships that were not good for me, that were dysfunctional, and I couldn't get out of them. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know what self-love meant. I really hated myself. I found it really difficult to be comfortable and sit comfortably inside my black skin. So after a relationship that was just incredibly painful, very codependent, and I was really kind of scared for my daughter. I was scared that she was going to be raised in an environment that was just as dysfunctional that I was raised in. So I wanted to take responsibility for that. I wanted to make some changes, and so I made the decision that I was going to go into therapy, go into recovery, and it's been an amazing journey ever since. And part of that journey was realizing that actually there was nobody in the recovery rooms, and the therapist that I was seeing at the time, there wasn't really any talk about racial sobriety. There was no talk about cultural therapy, any of that. And it's only through going through my journey that I realised that there's just not enough people talking about this stuff. There's not enough people exploring it at the depth. Obviously, there was also this stuff around, the scholars and stuff, like people like Dr. Welsing, and there's people that have, that exploring racism from the external perspective, but there wasn't enough people talking about, well, how do I heal internally from this? We know that we need to heal. We know that, hi, thanks for joining. We know that we need to heal. We know that racism, white supremacy has an impact on us as a community, but we don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it means. A lot of us don't know what it actually means to do the healing. A lot of us don't know. So after I went through the journey that I went through, I just thought, you know what, I really want to not just do more and learn more about racial sobriety and the whole concept of what it, the link between addiction and racism, and internalized racism and addiction and all of that kind of stuff. I started feeling so much better about who I was. I started feeling more confident. I started understanding my behaviour, understanding the dysfunction within my family a lot more. So the more I understood it, I just thought, I can't keep this stuff to myself. So I started sharing it with other people, and other people started getting it and understanding it, and like, oh wow. So it was important for me to keep doing this work, to keep sharing about it, and that's kind of what's brought me here today. Just to keep doing the work, keep sharing the the tools, keep sharing the hope, all of that stuff, all of that good. So yeah, that's a little bit about my story if you don't know me. So so today's topic is all about the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child, but how do we raise our children effectively when there's so many wounded people in the village? And I saw this question on somebody's timeline about a week or so ago, and it's kind of like as a result of all the stuff that's coming up around the R. Kelly stuff, and that has been really triggering, really painful, and I haven't kind of come out and sort of spoken about it publicly until now, because I really needed some time to get myself together, because I found it really triggering. And it was really painful kind of seeing the stuff that was going on in people's timelines, and just how people were reacting to it, the stuff that's been written about it. And obviously, for those of you that aren't aware of what's going on, I'm sure you have to be living under a rock to not know what's going on. But yeah, he's just been a lot of stuff that's come out around his paedophile behaviour, and a lot of the women that were abused and stuff by him, they're all coming out, and there's been a series of documentaries that have come out about it, and a lot of people are very triggered and in a lot of pain around it. And the thing that I really, really wanted to talk about was just really being honest about the fact that, just from what I've read on people's timelines and the conversations that I've had, and just thinking about my own journey around a lot of this stuff, is that, the truth is that so many black women feel unsafe in the community. So many of us feel unsafe. Hi Candice, how are you, darling? Lovely to see you. A lot of us feel unsafe in the village, and I think that a lot of times, what I'm noticing, what is interesting about all this stuff that's come up around R. Kelly, is that there are some people that are, still listening to his music and trying to, they're deflecting the whole conversation, talking about, oh, well, what about this person, and what about that white person, and why they're treating him differently, and all the rest of it. And all of that, a lot of that is valid. A lot of that is valid. They are going to, we live under the system of white supremacy. They are going to treat the white people that do this stuff differently. But for me, I see a lot of that as a deflection, to be honest with you. I see a lot of it as a deflection, because a lot of us in the community do not want to have the conversation that a lot of that stuff is going on in a lot of our homes. A lot of that stuff is going on in our homes, and we don't want to have those conversations. A lot of us are carrying that stuff and haven't told anybody. Yeah, you know, there's stuff like that happened to me. You know, I was molested when I was a child. You know, I was molested when I was very young, and then again, hi, how are? Hello, ladies. And then I was molested again when I was I don't know, I must have been about 12 or something like that. And it wasn't strangers. It wasn't strangers. It was, you know, it was people that were close to the family. So-called close to the family. And I think a lot of us can get really caught up in thinking that there's some sort of bogeyman outside, or bogeyman that we don't know, a stranger that's going to do this to our children. A lot of the time it's what's going on inside the house. You know, a lot of the time it is what's going on inside the house. And then what happens as a result of that is that it creates, you know, there's a betrayal of trust, obviously. And then it's very hard to trust anybody. It's very hard to trust other people when that's going on. And there's so much of it in our community for so many different reasons. And obviously, you know, a lot of this was going on during slavery time. A lot of this behaviour was going on during slavery time. You know, they had slave farms. They had a lot of stuff going on where, you know, our ancestors were made to have children so they could make money. Regardless of whether it's your mum, your sister, your auntie, your cousin. They didn't care. They were just, all they cared about was making money. And so a lot of that stuff was going on. And you got to remember that was going on for, you know, 250 years. And none of our ancestors went to therapy. So that stuff is not just going to leave the community. That stuff is not just going to leave our community just because slavery's been abolished. It's not. And that's the truth of it. And so, even though we understand that the bigger picture is that, you know, it's kind of like the fallout of slavery, it's a fallout of racism, and us not being able to, us finding it difficult to heal from that stuff. You know, ultimately, we have got to deal with that stuff internally. We've got to deal with that stuff as a community. You know, it's just not going to work. You know, thinking, oh well, what about, you know, Harvey Weinstein? At the end of the day, that's what they did. That's not going to help us as a community to heal and start to trust each other. It's not going to help us to heal by talking about what other people have done. It's not. It really frustrates me when I see people doing that. I understand why they're saying it, but it's not helping us. You know? For those of you that have just joined, hi, my name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach black women how to heal from the impact of racism. Just taking a well-needed pause there, getting on my high horse. I teach black women how to heal from the impact of racism, addiction to self-hate, with racial sobriety and personal empowerment. So today's topic, for those of you that have just joined, is about, you know, the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, but how can we raise a child when so much of the village is wounded, when so much of the village is broken? So I'm talking about also the stuff around the R. Kelly situation, and how, you know, there are certain people on social media that are starting to have those conversations around, oh, well, R. Kelly's done this, but what about Harvey Weinstein? Or what about, I forget the other guy's name, the filmmaker, I forget his name now, the one that ended up in a relationship, well, so-called relationship with his adopted daughter. I forget his name now. But yeah, so people are saying all this stuff, and what about this, that, and what about that? And they're talking about it from a white supremacy perspective, and I get that. I understand. I really do understand why people are saying it. But what I'm trying to say is, it's a deflection. It's a deflection from the abuse, the incest, the stuff that's going on in our community. Woody Allen, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's Woody Allen. Yeah, everybody's saying about what's going on with them, but no one's talking about. Nobody wants to have that conversation about what's going on in our community, and it isn't the bogeyman outside. It's what's going on in our homes, and I think it's important to. There was a post somebody put on Facebook the other day as well about. Do black women, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe and protected in the community? And honestly, that post, the thread just flooded with just comments from people, you know, just saying no, they just don't feel safe, you know. Candace is saying there was too much abuse in our community, and we've turned. That's it. We have a lot of our community have turned a blind eye to it, and the reason why they turn a blind eye to it is because they don't know how to deal with it. Number one, they don't know how to deal with it, and number two, if they deal with your abuse, then they have to deal with their own. They don't want to deal with their child's abuse because they haven't dealt with their own, and it's triggering. It's triggering, and it's this stuff. There's so many layers to this stuff. There's so many layers to it, you know. Let's have a look. So Hal was saying, oh my gosh, that's all I've seen on my feed. It's depressing how they are shaming the women, saying, why didn't they speak up sooner and then when they do. Oh my God, I'm missing the end of what you said, Hal, but it's just, that just drives me insane when I see that. And there's so many reasons why women don't speak up. I didn't speak up because I didn't think I was going to be heard. I didn't think I was going to be believed. I didn't think I was going to be heard, and I didn't think I was going to be believed. And also, like I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast, it's people who are friends. We're friends of the family, so-called friends of the family. So, are they going to believe? Am I going to be believed? They're seriously demonising victims, Howard, and it's so painful. And then people wonder why our community find it difficult to trust each other. We find it difficult to work with each other. We find it difficult to have relationships. We find it difficult to raise our children. We find it so difficult to do all of these things because the trust has been lost. And this is so much big. Obviously, the R. Kelly thing has brought up a lot of trauma for women that have been abused. It's triggered a lot of all of that stuff. But the bigger issue around this is trust. Is that once that trust has been broken, because a lot of what happens is, okay, the child gets abused by somebody, and then when the parent doesn't deal with it, abandons that child, or doesn't believe the child, or tells the child that she's too fast, or whatever it is, or she must have wanted it, or whatever it is, that child is traumatized for a second time. And quite often, the secondary trauma is just as painful as the abuse, because it's somebody who supposed to love and care for you is not dealing with it. Do you know what I mean? It's not dealing with it. Let's have a look. It's horrible. It's almost as if they're implying they deserved it. That sex is the same as rape. It's disgusting, as so many girls will now be very confused about what these leaves. Oh my, that's is so true, Howard. And I think what that is, that's about. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to have a conversation about it because they don't want to have to own the truth about what's going on in the community. They don't want to own it. They don't want to own it. And I think that for me, this whole R. Kelly thing triggered a lot of old wounds around not being able to trust other black people and feeling uncomfortable around other black people. Feeling uncomfortable, my discomfort around black men. For years, I found it really, really difficult to trust black men. And it was only through working with my therapist, and I specifically chose to work with a black man because I wanted to look at that stuff. I wanted to look at it. I wanted to know what it felt like to be in a safe space with another black guy, that what I didn't feel threatened by, that I didn't think that, oh my God, he's going to try something, he's going to do something. I'm just not feel safe. You know, and that therapist really, really helped me to get really honest, and it was a very safe space for me to get vulnerable. But a lot of this stuff is triggering all that, it's triggering for people around that they can't trust their own people. And there's a lot of women saying it as well. There's a lot of women saying it. Look, it's just shocking. It's just shocking to me, you know. But to me, it's just thrown up how sick our community is and how much healing we've got left to do. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about this evening is not just about raising children, but how can we heal as a village when the village is so unwell? How can we do that? Because there is so much mistrust, and trust me, I've seen people on my timeline saying that shit. I'm just blocking them. Real talk, I'm just blocking them, because I don't. If you think that it's okay to listen to R. Kelly's music, or anybody that's kind of trying to justify it at any level, I'm blocking them. Simple. So hi T. I don't know why people are discussing other perpetrators. That's not the issue. Discuss the issue. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a deflection. It's 100% deflection, because they don't. That's what I'm saying. They don't want to have the conversation about what's going on in the community. They'd rather talk about, oh, what about Woody Allen? What about this person? What about that person? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about R. Kelly in the community. It's different conversation. Different conversation. Because when we see, the thing is why it's different for us, and why it's painful for us, is because we're already being attacked. Black people are already being attacked by white supremacy already. And then we've got somebody within the community who's a huge, figure, who's been abusive for a number of years, and it's come up over. It's not like it's just shown up. It's come up over, and I stopped listening to his music from time. The first time I heard it, I basically dashed down his CDs, and I took his music out of my iPhone and whatnot. I don't want it in there. I don't want nothing to do with it, because as far as I'm concerned, boundaries need to be set. I don't care. Boundaries need. There's people out there saying, "Oh, well, he's black. Maybe he needs to." No. White supremacy, white supremacy. I am not condoning none of that man's behaviour, and we need to be having these honest conversations about these people. Because at the end of the day, if we don't learn how to set boundaries with people that are abusing our children, that are abusing black women, it's just crazy. It's like wanting equality to be... Yeah, I just don't... You know what it is, Howard? The only way I can somehow explain or somehow get into that, I think it's just... It's a response to just not wanting to deal with it. I think a lot of these people, they might have their own trauma that they haven't dealt with, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. And black people are already in enough pain already with what's going on in the world. We're already in enough pain already. So who wants to talk about somebody else like R. Kelly, a huge, person in the community, abusing black women, and well, they're not black women, they're children. These young girls that he's abusing. He obviously, he abused his wife, and it just, it just goes on. It just goes on. But we at the end of the day, these are three things that so you cannot separate it. That's my point. You can't separate the artist from the art. It's that simple. You cannot separate the artist from the art. And I can't. How can you listen to his music? Because that's what his music's all about. His music is all about what he got up to. So why would you want to listen to his music after that? Knowing somebody's a paedophile. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. But... And even, it was interesting as well, because even, I saw a clip, Iana Van Zandt was talking about it as well, and she was saying that, it's definitely transgenerational trauma as well. It's especially when you say blatantly display. He's been so obvious about it. He's been so obvious about he's been getting away with it. So why would he not continue? Why would he not continue? You know? And like you said, it's denial, and people just, that stuff just gets recycled. That trauma just gets recycled. You know? And we just get stuck. Unless you know, one of us draws the line in the sand and saying, this is going to end. This is going to end in my family. It's just going to continue. And it's the same for R. Kelly. People are just going to think, oh, well, R. Kelly got away with it. Why can't I do it? It's all right. It's only black women. Don't matter. Nobody cares about black women. Nobody cares about black children. So who cares? We have to take a stand on this. Seriously, we seriously have to take a stand on it. But we have to be willing to let go of what white supremacy is doing in this situation. If we're really going to start to heal the village, we have to start. It has to start with us. It has to start with us. Now, what I was saying, I was going to say something about is Ayana Van Zandt. That was it. I saw something about her. She was saying about how a lot of the mothers basically gave their children, their young girls, to him because, you know, he's famous, and maybe they wanted a bit of the fame and stuff as well. And I get that. I get that to a certain degree, but also I still think it almost sounds like victim blaming as well. Okay, the mothers do have a responsibility. The mothers do have a responsibility to protect their children. And I think it is absolutely shocking that any mother would let their, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-old child go and stay with some 30-year-old man, you know, on their own. It just ain't going to happen. So yes, they do have a responsibility. But at the end of the day, he's the abuser. He actually took advantage of them. He took advantage of them. And again, it's another way to kind of, it's victim blaming. As far as I'm concerned, it's victim blaming as well. And I think that, why is it always us that has to take the flak for all of this? Why is it always black women that have to take the flak for this? Why can't the community see that he needs to take responsibility for himself? Why are there boundaries not set around him? You know? And that's why I wanted to do this broadcast today, because these 3 things that I'm going to share are things that are specifically around what we can do for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the village is not going to heal until we do the internal work ourselves. The village is not going to heal collectively until we do the work individually. And I think a lot of people get stuck. When I saw the original post, the lady that actually put the original post about this, she was saying about a lot of the people underneath were saying things like, oh, love yourself, we have to heal as a community, and all that stuff sounds really nice, but like, what does that actually look like? There's not enough stuff out there saying, okay, well, what does it actually mean to love yourself? What does that mean in practical terms? Because it's a lot bigger than putting on a head wrap and saying ashe. It's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than spending money at, you know, at a black business. It's so much bigger than that. You've got to be willing to go to places in our internal journey that we've got to go to those places where we're afraid to go. To be honest with you, we've got to go to those places where we're afraid to go. And that means first of all, we have to look for a safe space. Number one, we need to look for a safe space. And I think the reason why so many black people can't heal or don't want to heal or find it difficult to heal, let's have a look. His lyrics are all about sex and forbidden pleasure. It has been his therapy on display, and we've been oblivious because of his tracks and that. He's been very obvious about it. And I think that because it's been going on for so long and it's been ignored, that it's almost been like accepted. It's almost like been accepted. It's been getting, you know, people have known for years that he's been doing this. And I mean, I haven't watched the documentaries I chose specifically not to watch the documentaries because I just knew I would find them too triggering. So I chose not to watch them. But I don't need to watch them to know what's gone on, because there's been so much stuff of it on social media. I just feel for those women that have gone through that. I really do. But you know, ultimately, we have to accept, and this is the harsh truth, is the fact that our village is sick. Our village is sick, and the only way the village is going to be healed is if we take, first of all, individual responsibility for our healing. I knew that there was a lot of pain in my family. I knew there was a lot of pain in the relationships that I was in, and I spent a lot of time trying to drag other people and trying to get other people to change. I spent a lot of energy trying to get other people to change, trying to change their behaviour, trying to blame other people. If you just did this, then I would feel safe. If you just did that, I would feel better. It don't work like that. It really doesn't work like that. There is so much pain. Yes, there's so much pain, and everybody expresses and manages their pain differently as well. Everybody manages their pain differently as well, and it's just so important to find a safe space to be able to start to do that, you know. And that could be therapists, that could be recovery group, that could be, you know, group support, but it needs to be safe. And I think finding that safe space is hard for a lot of people, because a lot of spaces are not really catered to kind of deal with, you know, racial pain. A lot of people don't really know how to deal with it, you know. And that's one of the reasons why I say the stuff that I do, and you know, one of the reasons why I did the book club, because the book club is a space where we not only study the book. For, you know, there's some of the ladies on the broadcast will tell you that we don't just study the book. It's an opportunity to talk about our experiences and to talk about, you know, how difficult it is to talk about this racial stuff. And it's so deep. It goes deep. And actually, the recurring theme that always comes up in those things is not actually what white people are doing to us, but actually how unsafe the ladies feel in our own families. How unsafe we feel in the community. At the end of the day, they kind of know, they have an understanding of how white people behave, or white people that practice white supremacy behave. They understand that to a certain degree. But the pain is not feeling safe within our own family, not feeling safe within our own community, not feeling safe within our own spaces, not feeling safe with other people that look like us. That is the most excruciating thing. Because at the end of the day, human beings need to connect. That's a basic human need, to be able to connect with other people. And if we can't connect with anyone that looks like us, that creates so much anxiety. It's painful. And it creates isolation. So it makes sense why people find it really, really difficult to find spaces to heal, because they feel that they're going to be understood. And if you're a black woman and you're trying to find a healing space, you know, you're having someone that's going to understand that it could be triggering for that person is really important. This is one of the things that came up in the group as well, actually, and I did a podcast on it. You know, how to heal with black women when you were bullied by them. You know, how to heal with other black women when you were bullied by them. That was important for us to talk about, and for me to share about that in the group, because it was such a common thing, because so many black women don't trust other black women. And so we needed to have that conversation, and the relief, it was such a relief to be able to say that stuff out loud, and for so many other women to identify with it. That was really, really important, to be able to have that conversation and do it in a way that was not blaming or to trigger anyone else in the group, but it was an honest, compassionate, vulnerable place to be. you know. And I remember when I first had that conversation with another black woman, and it was really, it was painful to say it out loud. But the more I started having those conversations with the other black people that I was talking about, this is many, you know, my black people in recovery. Hi, Vivian, lovely to see you. Yeah, it was really hard to, really hard to have that conversation. But it was important. It was important to have that conversation because the empathy and the compassion that we need to be able to heal. We can't heal without each other. That's the dilemma that a lot of us have. A lot of us want to heal, but we're so triggered by each other. We don't understand why we're so triggered by each other. And so it's difficult for us to go into a healing space because maybe we don't want to go and sit in front of a white person and talk about our cultural stuff because that doesn't feel safe. But we also don't understand why we're so triggered sitting in front of other black women or another black therapist or whatever the group is, to be able to have those honest conversations. So to be in a space like the book club where we actually have those sorts of conversations and where there are specific things around the characteristics of black self-hate that we talk, you know, that is shared in the group, and that actually is part of the starter pack. Actually, if you want to buy the get a ticket to the next one, the starter pack is actually part of the package now for the next one. If you click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net, you can get your ticket to the next one. It's 16th of Feb, 9:30, 5 minutes from Bond Street Tube. Yeah, and it's all about stress. It's all about stress, the next one. So it'll be really interesting. But yeah, so it's important that you feel comfortable. It's important that you're in a space that's non-shaming. That's really, really important because, you know, so many of us have experienced shame, you know, by parents or other family members or, you know, other black people. That is, and also, you know, racism, the way that racism continues and perpetuates as well is by triggering shame about who we are as black people. So, yeah, it's really important to be in a space that's non-shaming, that there are boundaries around, you know, how we speak to each other, how we address each other, how we talk to each other. So having a safe space is really important. Same with, you know, if you're going to see a therapist, it's important that you know, I always tell people to, you know, if you're going to pick a therapist, take your time and be discerning about it. You know, think about the type of therapist that you want. Think about the type of things that you want to talk to your therapist about. Go and have one session with the therapist. Don't just pick one and then just, you know, start seeing them or whatever. Just go and pick 2 or 3 that you like the sound of, and then have sessions with them so you can see how you feel about them. Do you feel safe? What's the environment like? And talk to them about the issues that, you know, go in with a list, write a list and go in there with a list of the things that you want to talk to them about. This is your healing. This is no joke, and you're going to be paying money for it. You know, take your time when you do that. If you want more information about how to pick a therapist, I do have a podcast about it. If you go to therapy.juneallen.net, I'll put a link in the description. You can sign up and get an audio about how to pick a therapist. There's also a PDF as well about how to, you know, with some more stuff about the Black and Asian Therapist Network and all of that kind of stuff. And I talk quite openly about my own therapy process. So yeah, so go to therapy.juneallen.net if you want support around therapy. Yeah, so that's really, really important. So number one, yeah, you have to have, you know, find a safe space for yourself. The second thing is you've got to own your own pain first. You've got to look at your own pain first. And I think it's with everything that's going on around us, you know, with racism, you know, you've got dysfunctional family members, you've got, you know, black people at work that, you know, doing whatever, and that feeling of not feeling safe. It's easy to be able to point the finger at other people and say, well, he's doing that, Donald Trump's doing that, you know, black women at my workplace is this, she's, you know, and you've got, you know, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of distractions around the healing process and what that looks like, and you know, ways to distract you from what really needs to be done. And what really needs to be done is your own stuff. And so the only way that this situation is really going to change is if you do your own work. You've got to look at your own pace first. You've got to look at your own pain first before it can change. And the third thing is around, you've got to build your own village. You've got to start learning how to build your own village. And this is one of the most powerful things that I learned on my own journey, because when I first came into recovery, I had so much anxiety just around being around people. I've had so much pain around being around people. I had so much shame around being a black woman. I had so much shame I just found it really difficult just to be around people and to get stuff done. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't believe that, but it's the truth. Like, I used to find it really, really hard. But as I, spent more time with my therapist, spent more time in recovery, started doing a lot more work around the racial sobriety stuff, looking at my shame and all of that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of work on myself. 8 years in therapy. 9 years in therapy, actually. 9 years in therapy, 8 years in recovery. That's a lot, and I'm so grateful now that I'm in this position where I've got a village. I've taken time to build a village. I'm a lot more discerning about who I have in my inner circle. You don't just get to come in my inner circle because, we're blood relatives or whatever. And I get to choose how intimate I am with that person, how emotionally intimate I am with that person, how much I share about myself. Because what you learn when you start doing the internal work is you start to learn first of all, you learn how to trust yourself. You first learn how to trust yourself, and then it becomes easier to decide who else you're going to trust. And you don't just trust other people just because they're older than you or they're elders or whatever. You trust them because they've earned it. That's a difficult thing in our community as well, because I know our ancestors and stuff, they used to really value our elders, and they used to have a lot of wisdom and all that kind of stuff. But real talk, a lot of our elders did they haven't earned it, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. We live under the system of racism, and a lot of our elders have got a lot of unheard pain, a lot of unheard stuff that they're carrying around with them that they haven't dealt with. And that means that a lot of our elders have behaved in ways and have been abusive to us in ways that's unacceptable. So you can't, unfortunately, we're in a situation where we have to be discerning about who we trust. And it's not about whether you're an elder or not. It's like, have you earned that trust? Is your behaviour appropriate? Because I know a whole heap of elders and their behaviour is not appropriate. A whole heap. Churchgoers and whoever. It doesn't matter if I've seen behaviour in elders that's just totally unacceptable. So I don't care who you are. I'm not going to be rude to you, but you have to earn the trust. I'm not just going to automatically I'm not just going to automatically accept that you've got some sort of wisdom or whatever just because you're a church person or because you're an elder. No. I will respect you as a human being, but, I'm not going to do what you say or whatever just because you're an elder. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the elders have abused the children. A lot of the elders have abused the children, and they're not willing to take any response. I was laughing at me. Listen, real talk, Howard. Exactly. The church people, listen, my experience, some of the worst ones, because they hide behind the Bible. They use the Bible as a tool for abuse. Oh, well, if you don't do this, then you're the devil. And black people love to do that. If you don't do this way, then you're the devil. And so-and-so chapter 1 verse 6 says this. And so you're that. And no. They use it as a shaming tactic to silence you. And to make you think that somehow it's a power thing. It's a power thing. So it's a power thing. And so it's been very, very difficult to trust elders with all of that going on. And I've built up so much self-confidence now that I'm not going to be shamed and silenced by none of that. And I can see right through it. That's no disrespect to anybody that's a Christian or whatever, but that's my truth. That's my truth. A lot of black people in this community are hiding behind the Bible. Trust me, I know the guys that listen. There were people in the church. Anyway, available. They just weren't available for those things. So it's really important to have that family of choice. That's how you start to build a village. And you know, real talk, our generation of children are in a great position now, in a great position to be able to start to do this work, because a lot of this stuff was not available to our parents. And that's not me excusing their behaviour, but I'm just